Good evening, and welcome to our meeting tonight of the Board of School Trustees for Fort Wayne Community Schools. We ask that you stand and join with us in our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Steve, introduction of members.
Good evening. I'm Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Good evening. I'm Glenna Yale from the 2nd District.
And I'm Becky Hill from District 3.
Julie Hollingsworth, District 1.
Ann Duff, I represent the district at large.
And Mark Giacquina, an at-large member of the school board. Joining us tonight are the substitute clerk to the board. Angie, thanks for being here and for your help in getting us ready for the meeting tonight. We appreciate it. And we hope that means that Barb is on vacation and enjoying herself. She'll be back tomorrow. They'll be back tomorrow, okay. And Dr. Robinson, our Fort Wayne Community School Superintendent. Good evening, Dr. Robinson.
Good evening.
You had a great and busy week next week. Maybe we'll hear, last week, maybe we'll hear a little bit more about that as the meeting goes on. We have a very abbreviated agenda this evening. We won't keep you long, it appears. We start with the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes from when? Our last meeting, which was September 26, 2016. Approval of our vouchers and payroll for the period ending October 10th, so it's from September 16th to October 10th, and the personnel report for approval by the board. Are members of the board satisfied with keeping these items in the consent agenda this evening? Are there any items you care to comment on or question? Seeing no questions or comments, Dr. Robinson, is there anything on the personnel report you wish to comment on? Okay, then we'll entertain a motion in a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. We do have a couple items of new business tonight. And the first is a recommendation that we approve, or recommend that we approve the purchase of Kenwood digital radios at all elementary schools, 5 middle schools, Anthus Tolls, and several support departments. And what happened to my, I don't know, do I have that out of order? I do. The information on that is that it is for a transition from the current district analog handheld radios and bus radios to digital radios. And that's going to mean some licensing, software, programming, emergency response system, a few base units. We need to replace the existing analog repeaters. The transition to digital radios is required due to the FCC mandating the narrowing of the bandwidth. So, what else? We've standardized Kenwood brand radios for compatibility of equipment and replacement parts along. Did I mention that we were supposed to turn off our phone? I forgot to do that. Now I did it. You can turn them to
You're
airport.
Just testing the system.
Yeah, testing the system. If the phone starts ringing that nobody can see me, we'll know it. That was not a waste of time all these years. So on this particular bid, the local authorized sales dealer, the manufacturer JVC Kenwood, requires that J&K Communications provide the proper system design, installation, and ongoing support before, during, and after the sale. Sales to Fort Wayne Community Schools from a source other than J&K would not be approved or supported by the JVC Kenwood. Indiana law doesn't require a public bid process when these conditions are met. So that's about it. The amount of money here is $814,839.96. Kathy, is there any additional information we need to know in order to move forward with this?
Not for me, no.
Are there questions?
Just out of curiosity, how many radios is that?
There's
total of 1,075 two-way radios, and then repeaters and all the other support systems on top of that.
Is there a reason why none of the high schools are getting these radios? Do they already have them?
The high schools were already replaced. We started this transition period back in the 2014 school year.
Thanks, Don.
Does that satisfy what we need to know?
I think so.
Okay.
I move for approving the purchase.
Second?
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. Now we move into the public hearing on the 2017 budgets. And those include the capital project plan and the school bus replacement plan, along with our regular budgets. So we have advertised, as we're required to do, the fact that we open our microphone to the public to comment on the budget for next year. And we, I'm trying to look, the law, as I just mentioned, requires that we conduct the public hearing on the budgets, the 3-year capital projects plans, 12-year bus replacement plan. The hearing is scheduled for this evening's meeting. And essentially, it's to receive community input on the budget that was proposed and presented by Kathy. We'll be asked to vote on the budget on October 24th. So, with that, we hereby declare the public hearing open. I'll give anyone here who wishes to comment on our budgets, the capital projects plan, the bus replacement plan, the opportunity to approach the microphone, give us your name and any concerns or comments you may have at this time. And we could set those cones up so that we don't have people running into each other. It's not really uncommon, it hasn't been for a number of years, for us to open the public hearing and not have comment. We have had a declining budget for years as a result of changes in the revenue structure based on the constitutional tax caps and other reductions. So this isn't as though we're expanding the budget at a rate that would cause a lot of concern. So I don't think it's so much public apathy as that perhaps there's some recognition that there just isn't the money to go around. Did you have a comment? Come on, it's so good to see you, Brian. Just give us your name. Take all the time you want.
Brian Studer. I just wanted to say thank you to you and Kathy Friend for talking to the Fort Wayne City Council. I almost never ever go anywhere but here, but I did go there, and I did express thanks to them during their public comments for not
great.
blowing a hole in the budget. So thank you.
Well, I'm glad you did that. I couldn't return because it was on Tuesday nights and I'm teaching on Tuesday evenings, but I'm glad that because we do need to, we probably as a board ought to express our gratitude to the city council for listening and turning down that further.
Yeah, it wasn't like 5-4. It was a pretty close run. So you guys made the difference.
Yeah,
I think.
well, good. Well, we really appreciate that, and we should extend our appreciation. Kathy, why don't you and I maybe work on a note?
We actually already did send a letter to City Council thanking them for their vote. So
Okay,
right afterwards, but.
Okay, well, maybe the board
Yeah.
would want to, we did pass a resolution asking that they not do it. Maybe we should pass a resolution at the next meeting, just say, thanking the council, the city council, and certainly extending an invitation for any dialogue they would ever want with regard to our budgets. I think that would be a wise thing to do. We don't want to just be heard when we're upset. So we also want to be heard when we're grateful. Well, let me again call to the microphone anyone who would care to comment on the budgets. And seeing no one, I'll entertain a motion now to close the public hearing that has been held in accordance with Indiana law as advertised.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. So the public hearing is on the budget is hereby closed. We've satisfied our obligations under the Indiana Code. We've also completed our new business for tonight. So we probably, Dr. Robinson, I know, again, you were very busy last week with the Brain Trust, who, along with Steve Corona, who is not a member of the Brain Trust, but attempted to have as much of that rub off on him as possible, was also there representing the
I
board.
captured it in a bottle.
In a bottle, the Brain Trust. So anyway, but next time we have a short agenda like this, maybe we can use it as an opportunity to discuss one of our topics that we need to get to. So with that, I'll ask for comments or among the board members, and then we'll open it up to public comment. And
Yeah,
go.
I'll talk briefly about this visit. Actually, the program is called Redesign Partnership, and it's under the auspices of Learning Forward, which is really an organization based in Ohio that has helped us over the past several years organize professional development. And it was interesting. We had visitors to Fort Wayne, and then several of our folks who are involved in additional training principals met with educational consultants in Indianapolis. And I had an ability to witness all of this and to watch what is occurring. And it was interesting of the comments made by our visitors as to what we are doing. You would think that professional development and education is something that happens everywhere and is successful everywhere. And what I learned, in fact, it's not. In fact, as I was talking to several of our visitors, they were sharing with me that there are very few models in which professional learning occurs within public education. The traditional method has been to bring in some consultant from out of town to close schools for a few days or to have training occur before the school year. One of our guests identified this as pray and spray training. You hope that whatever this consultant says sticks and good things happen in the classroom. I thought about this, and I think one of the other approaches may be, I didn't check this with Dr. Robinson or Laura Kane, but laboratory schools, which I think may still be around. I'm most familiar with the one that was in Bloomington. Don't know if it's still there on the bypass or not. Maybe another way that professional development occurs. But what we're doing here is very unique in that we are embedding or hardwiring the training into our schedule. And it requires a high level of sophistication for this to occur. Thinking that we're not a factory, we can't stop making widgets on a particular day. We have kids coming. And so you have to figure out how you schedule training. You also have to understand that good training and the assessment of what students are doing or not has to be done quickly so that you're developing lesson plans for the next week. One of the advisories, warnings that I gave to people in the room was that if you monitor closely your 401k or your 403b retirement program or your IRA, I told them to dispose of any stock that they have in Office Depot or 3M, any company that manufactures or sells laminating machines, because that old notion of teachers laminating lesson plans and keeping them for years and years and years doesn't fly anymore in Fort Wayne, Indiana, because what we were able to witness as we visited Lindley School, and Becky was there for part of it, were third and fourth grade teachers with their resource teacher and their principal looking at scores of their students with respect to, I think it was math, understanding that students were doing okay in 2 of the 3 areas they discussed, but not doing well in the 3rd area. And so they spent the next 20 minutes developing the lesson plan for the next week for all of their 3rd and 4th grade students. It was impressive. And in fact, some of the comments that I picked up from our visitors talked about the sophisticated thinking in that group done so efficiently. They also talked about what we're doing as in Fort Wayne Community Schools as being a role model for the country. And I pressed and I said, why? And they said, nothing like this is occurring in the United States. Powerful conversations that were inspiring, amazing respect for each other. We happened to listen in on a meeting with Carlton Mabel, principal at Southside, and his teachers about teacher evaluation. The next day, I listened to one of the working groups that looked at evaluation. And they were really getting down to some very fine hairs as to what questions we were asking, trying to understand if what we were doing was making a difference. So it was very, very interesting to see the work that we're doing. We visited, spent some time with 85 coaches that were across the street from here, and they were working in a collaborative fashion to figure out what was working and what was not working. They were prompted by several questions. Knew a couple of the folks in my room and tried to and asked a little bit more insight about how was it going. Fine with the teachers that get it, and trying to figure out solutions as they consulted with their peers about those teachers that were a little skeptical or not getting it right away. So it was an interesting a couple of days, and I know that we don't know exactly where this goes, but clearly we were urged on several occasions to apply for grants. I know that there was somebody from the Carnegie Foundation that was there, and I can't stress to you enough the importance of the evaluations and that they're done right. Because if we're really a model for the country, it has tremendous potential. Everybody does the easy stuff in public education. You get rid of all the adults in the building, and you hire a turnaround company. Well, that's the easy part. What then do you do? How do you really improve teaching performance and student achievement? And that's the hard part that we're working on right now in this district. So I know there could be more said by the superintendent, but I will let her do that, but one of the handouts that we gave our guests was really a quick snapshot of us as we described ourselves as becoming a learning system. A couple of good days.
But it sounds very interesting, and thanks for the recap. I know some of the rest of you were able to attend, and some of those of us weren't, but it sounds like a very interesting week.
And Mr. President, I think the takeaway for me and to share with you is that I would hope that we would have that opportunity to observe these groups as they meet on an ongoing basis to see firsthand that work. It's impressive. It really is.
So Steve, how are we going to know 3 years out whether all this grand discussion, good feeling made a difference?
Well, I think it's going to come in the assessments and the evaluation. And I sat in on the group that talked about exactly that, about asking the right questions, making sure that there is an impact, because
who are you going to ask?
well, we're going to ask our people about it. We're going to, there's already been some initial information that's come out.
So we'll poll the teachers?
They are developing evaluation tools and instruments to make sure that not only are we satisfied as the Board of Trustees for this district, but the administration is. But I think professional educators around the country, I think they want to make sure that as we frame those questions, that we not pose a question that we already know the answer to. Do you like chocolate cake? Yeah, sure, I like chocolate cake. Well, it's going to be a little bit more probing to make sure that those questions are posed so that we really get to know whether what we're doing is making a difference. You can have other indicators. You could take a look at how students are doing, or as someone suggested in my work group, It may be that you're going to see other indicators, such as teacher attendance, that if they're really turned on as to what they're doing, you will see they're saying that we may want to take a look at our teacher attendance over the course of a fixed period of time. It was very interesting. The people that were brought in for this meeting in Indianapolis were high-powered, very smart people, smarter than me. Right. Nothing that I could capture in a bottle about analytics and data analysis, and it was really, really good stuff. And these people were from all over the country who spent a lot of time in collecting and then breaking down and looking at the data that's been collected for a specific project. I was impressed.
Well, I hope that in 3 years, we have something more than chocolate cake.
I'll take both.
Yeah.
You already have something now. So they've been here for many years. How many years?
Learning for it?
Yes.
I think if you look at the problem of practice on the becoming a learning system, the intent is by May to have the group that Steve was involved in, our researchers and data analysis people who are going to help our internal team figure out, is it a survey, is it observation, what is it that you're going to gather, because we're very specifically looking at teachers' abilities to write teacher classroom assessments to change their instruction. So it's a process that we will have a session on as we get the feedback. We're all going to do that next week, and shortly thereafter we'll have a session on what are we going to know and how will we know, because very specifically there's a 5-step process. The last step is that you would change student achievement. It would have an impact. Well, part of our handicap is that we don't have at this point a way at the state level to measure student achievement. So what we're going to focus on is reading scores. So very specifically, after our interaction review and getting they gave us lots of questions and very critical of whether what we were trying to do made any sense at all. We'll have a work session, lay it out, and the intent is to report on that all year. And it's a very simple process. Our teachers better able to write assessments, to be able to determine achievement in the classroom of students from their assessments, and do they change their practices around using assessments. So that's just a very small piece. They learn how to do that through a very structured professional learning process we're going to go through all year. So that was part of the reason.
How long have they been with us, so learning for?
3-4 years.
Okay.
Long before that,
my
they were
point
here in the
is-
classroom.
We don't have an objective measure yet.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Okay.
yeah, no, but what, you can't get that with this. This is a culture change, and that's what I am so excited about it, because you can't just say, okay, we're going to do this now, and then in a year you see something. A culture change has to do with personal transformation. It has to do with how you share power with your teachers and with your coaches and with your assistant principal. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing not just the principal laying down the rules of how things are done or who's going to be judged how, or if favorites are, given a higher score. They sit in these QIT groups where you have, what did we see, 25 people? Teachers, coaches, all that sitting.
Those predated learning forward, though. We've been doing that since balanced scorecard.
I know, but this is more pointed. The discussion is everybody sharing on this and how to develop better classroom techniques. I loved it because they had a long discussion in the South Side about how to help new teachers coming into this. So this is so complicated, this whole process, and you don't learn this at the schools of ed. So we're really taking on important pieces of education for our teachers, and then bringing new ones in, and then supporting them. But to see this in action, I've read about this, Dr. Robinson, but to see it in action like I did on, I think it was Wednesday, and then talk to people who were fascinated with it, who were from all over, and superintendents and all that, and they were so interested that there were so many different people involved around the table worrying about the student, worrying about how to get to the student and how to improve the teaching techniques. And it's a process. they're formalizing a process that will be here long after we're sitting here. And that takes time for people to take it in, understand it, drink the juice, whatever you want to say, but you have to have that kind of belief system if it's going to be successful. Because then if it were just built on what Dr. Robinson likes, when she's gone, it'll leave and everybody else will come running around doing their own thing. It has to be embedded in the employees and the board, and to understand how important it is for the organization. I was thrilled with the attention to teacher evaluation. I love the names. I gotta say the names sometimes are just kill me because I can't even say it. Interrater, is that what it's called?
Inter-rater
reliability.
So, yeah, so trying to understand how teachers are evaluated and how the numbers come up, and it was an hour of, and that's a short session, of how teachers were rating other teachers and then figuring out what was fair. And it's difficult work. I
Well,
can't
then
stress that
I mean,
enough.
there isn't any, that's the whole problem with it, is that it's all over the place, and it's very difficult to create a standard methodology.
Yeah.
That's the whole inter-rater reliability.
Right.
Is the problem. Nobody's cracked that nut yet.
Well, they are working on that.
Well, that's good.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's we've got young principals that are doing the work and teaching others, and that's the issue. They're teaching others. It's expanding across the district. I think that is really important, and it's basically our role here is a culture of change and understanding that, and then being able to translate it to other people who want to know about it. That's a real important piece. But I loved last week. I didn't get to go on Thursday. I wish I could, but just the pieces I saw, the people I talked to who were so excited about what we're doing here. I'm just really proud of how everything was done last week.
If I
First
could,
class, first
Mr.
class.
Giaquina's point, it's not new learning. We have been doing it.
Right.
And change is 5 to 7 years.
Right.
The thing that we're doing now is not doing first order, which is just do it and check it off. We're actually getting to the point that on Thursday, one of the learning forward people said to me, "You didn't say a lot yesterday." I didn't have to, because principals and
Right.
teachers and coaches now own how they're supposed to be changing adult practices to have greater achievement for students. So it isn't new. It is a deeper understanding. One of the questions you asked me is, how is this impacting teachers? Well, it's a layered approach, because the leaders who are responsible for teachers and the coaches who are supposed to help the teachers have to know what they're doing before I can tell you that it's reached each of the classroom teachers. But that's what we're going to measure by May, on a very narrow process, because if we can get that process down, then we ought to be able to measure that on and expand the kind of things that we do with teachers. So we'll be having a work session. We'll talk about it out loud. What you have in front of you is just a little overview that we gave. This is in draft form, because we're going to learn this year, and there are things on here. We got very good feedback. Some of the diagrams were complicated. They pushed back on us and asked, does that really depict what it is you're trying to do? So this was taken so that they could criticize it and critique it for us. So after next week, we'll have, maybe even at the next board meeting, an open conversation about where we're heading. So thank you for the opportunity, Steve.
Glenna, we kind of jumped
No,
over.
that's okay. No, this is a very important topic. Anytime we can talk about investing in our teachers and helping them with professional learning, that is worthwhile. And I had the opportunity to talk to a teacher who'd been around for 30 years and asked him, how is this professional learning impacting you? And he had very positive things to say. One of the things he said is it's changed the climate within the building, the way teachers work with each other. There's more respect. And they understand it's a team effort. And, before we didn't have it to this degree, other than, the traditional ways of perhaps getting them together and hoping to inspire them and maybe something impacting their ability to teach. But and then again, learning how to use the assessments to help individual students who need the intervention early is very helpful. So I'm happy that these are a part of our program here, and I'm sure that it will pay dividends in the long run. It's just hard to change a big ship like we've got and take it in a whole different direction than it may have been on a different course, slightly different course, but it is very important to help our teachers to become the very best at what they do, and it will impact the students that they deal with day in and day out. So just to help them do their job better is very important. But the one thing that I did participate in this week that I want to just kind of toss out there is I was able to participate in a candidates forum that was held at the public library for various candidates to come and discuss topics, and the school board session had representatives not just from Fort Wayne Community School but also other school districts in the county, and so the questions were very broad, very general, but one of the topics that kept coming up time and time again, and it was always directed to me because I was the incumbent from Fort Wayne Community Schools, was how can we better communicate with our parents? And I was just surprised because it was asked multiple times in different ways, and so I thought, I just wanted to mention it tonight to say, look, we heard you. This is an issue. Perhaps we need to pay a little bit more attention to it, or if I'm sure what we're doing through Let's Talk and some other avenues have improved that, but maybe we need to be a little more intentional about the way we communicate, or even the timing of what we communicate. So we'll take a look at that and see if there are ways. We're always looking for ways to improve our partnership with parents.
Just to piggyback on what they've said, Becky and I came Monday to the dry run of our staff, cabinet, and principals and coaches, and there may have been some teachers there too, that at what they were going to present to the PD redesign people on Thursday. So it evidently, not surprisingly, was well received. Steve. So I just wanted to congratulate our staff and your leadership, Dr. Robinson, for, again, what is a very great compliment to our district and its staff. And to Glenna's point, when I was teaching, I always said I learned most and best from my colleagues. And while that has always gone on, I think what we're talking about here, like Glenda mentioned, we're talking about embedding a system of professional learning that enables educators in every building to share and compare and learn from each other and capitalize on the talent and the abilities that we have throughout our district. And that is something I think that is truly new and different. So, again, congratulations, Dr. Robinson, for taking on that, what is a tremendous effort when you're talking about, 2,000 teachers and 4,000 staff. But as we've seen, it's off to a great start.
I want to, just great that we had the participation we did. And I apologize, I was not here on Friday, so I didn't get weekly. I did talk to Dr. Robinson Monday, but it didn't slip into the conversation. So while I had the time marked off my calendar, by the time I called in to find out where I was supposed to be, it was apparently too late. So I regret that I wasn't able to participate, but my absence was not the result of a lack of interest in it. I want to say that at this point, I want to make clear, however, that the efforts to involve teachers in the overall operation of their buildings did start with the QITs and a lot of the accountability measures that we started back in the lead school days. So it's fine to have this group here and try to take us to that next level, but the assessments that we're talking about, these are efforts to establish that teachers are getting it through their ability to author assessments and then follow up on those assessments. Still, to me, the gold standard here will be determining whether or not it makes a damn bit of difference for the child in the classroom. It should, you think, but that's unfortunately the piece of this puzzle that has not yet been objectified. It's still pretty subjective in its at this stage. And so, I think the next step, this teaching teachers and working with teachers to do the assessment piece is really vital. But hopefully at some point we'll actually be able to say that this has made a difference in the ability of the children in the classroom to learn. I mean, that's really why we do all of this stuff. And as of yet, that objective measure has not yet been established. But with as smart as the people who are included in the Brain Trust are, I'm sure they'll come up with it. Maybe we'll come up with it for them. I'm most excited about the possibility that we can go back to another one of our challenges that we acknowledged a couple years ago, and that is this dip between middle school and high school. And the fact that we've started down the path of integrating the elementary, grade school, and high schools, I'm more excited about that. I think that would be, certainly something that we could show through objective data, and maybe it'll piggyback with this effort. But both, I think, are off to a good start. I think getting the teachers to that assessment stage is critical. That's a good thing, because that way you can at least determine whether or not the instructor, whether they're getting it. I mean, whether they're being able to do that which you assume is important to change the classroom results. So I'm not throwing cold water on it, but I hope we get to that level where at some point we can look back and say, not only do we all feel good about each other and there's the kind of organizational change based on mutual respect, and as Steve said, teachers are coming to the classroom ready and able to teach, and frankly willing to teach without carrying with them the weight that we placed on their shoulders, blaming them and criticizing them for the difficulties they have. I mean, we kind of we arm them with new weapons, and they're certainly, it seems to me, it stands to reason that they would come to school ready, better able, and frankly, I guess with that kind of spirit you were talking about, that can-do, that maybe will counteract some of the negativity that they've been forced to carry over the last few years. So I've no complaints here. I just hope we get to the point, Dr. Robinson, where we really do, or we really are able to say to the community, not only did we do it, we did it well, but look at these results, and they're not, as Steve said, purely subjective results. So, but I'm sure that's been discussed and probably ad nauseum by you and your groups.
Well, I think last year we worked on the fact that there were new standards. If you remember, Indiana rewrote theirs. And we worked with teachers at all levels on what are you going to do with them. Because at the end of the day, when we finally get a test in Indiana, hopefully it'll be based on the standards that they have for every grade level. So all last year we worked with teachers on how do you take these standards without using only the textbook, and how do you know what first graders are supposed to know, connect that to second grade. Because we do talk a lot that kindergarten begins the process for graduation. Because at the end of the day, it's are they graduating able to go into college and career world of work? This year, because we are in a state where we can't count on what the assessments are going to look like. We're supposed to potentially get I-STEP this week. We don't know. It's October. So teachers have to do something to know whether the kids are learning their standards.
And that's the
assessment piece
right.
is to help our teachers understand also that you don't assess just with paper and pencil. There are lots of performance tasks. There are lots of things that students can do to demonstrate lots of skills. But at the end of the day, professional learning isn't the focus. The focus is whether we're able to students are able to achieve, master the standards. The thing that I think we appreciate in this district, our teachers work hard, and they're frustrated because the standard for them and what's excellent in terms of them keeps changing. But we are focusing in on the student because that has to be the bottom line, because whether we like it or not, at the end of the day, the state will at some point have some kind of assessment. And shame on us if we are not continuing to work toward kids mastering those standards while the state gets their act together.
And,
So I don't want you to
that's
misunderstand.
thank you for saying that.
That's
that's
the
what I
focus.
was really trying to say, is that if the teachers, you know, in the current atmosphere, they take I-STEP isn't aligned to the standards, they get their test scores back, the children haven't done well, they blame, the state blames the teachers, blames the schools, blames the school board. So, yeah, what I was trying to say is that if we can get our teachers to understand how to assess, and as you say, and the assessments are tied to the standards, then what should happen is that the teacher in the classroom says, look what I did. I developed an assessment. It was tied to the standard. I know that these students, based on the assessments I drafted, are getting closer to meeting the standard, and hopefully, knock on wood, whatever standardized test is approved also reflects the standards, and then they finally see that result.
And the powerful argument we make is that when you test, you need scores back quickly so that we can implement teaching correction, course corrections in the classroom. And it really then says these other tests really have little value to us. Little value.
Right. I mean, well, frankly, the test shouldn't have, if you're doing the assessments properly and the standards make sense and the assessments are tied to the standards, you shouldn't even need a standardized test. I mean, because you should know throughout the course of the year that you're meeting the standards, and that's what we want our students to know, right? I mean,
ESSA is going to require that, even though everybody's happy that we have no child left behind. But let me explain something else we're doing. We walk and chew gum at the same time here, because at the end of the day, we have to ensure that every single child is reading at or above grade level. I was at a school this morning, and they received a new student on Friday, speaks absolutely not a single word of English. And so there were 3 teachers standing in the hallway. They were ELL teachers and a classroom teacher, and they were strategizing what they were going to do. So in a district like ours, whether children can read at or above grade level becomes the key. Because if they can't read, they can't do the math and the science and everything else. The other thing that we have to focus in on is that statistics will let you know that disproportionality, meaning the number of times you are likely to be suspended based upon your race, it's prevalent throughout this country. So for us as a district, can they read at grade level? And what is our disproportionality? And are there alternative ways that kids can maintain an education and we maintain safety and security? So I don't want you to think that we're only doing one thing. The standards, can they read, disproportionality, but honestly, we are preparing because we are still going to have a standardized test. It may not be like I-STEP, but ESSA won't get away from that. So
and I know we are.
that's the, you know, it's just, so that's the intent of the professional learning is that there has to be hope among the adults that they're going to be capable and they have tools to get it done. So if nothing else, look at it that way, that we got all this other stuff to do. We have all these teachers who I don't know one of them that comes to try to do a bad job every day. And they're frustrated. And here's the beauty of what happened last week. You saw 3 third-grade teachers helping each other. And one was a veteran teacher, another one hadn't been there that long. And the dialogue between them. So we're not expecting individual teachers to do all this by themselves. So we're going to provide you opportunities. We're going to give you feedback on what we did last week. But this is a 3 to 5 year process. Because it was 3 to 5 years to get all the structures in place. But it has to be down to the classroom teacher because they're the ones teaching the kids. So we'll talk about that after our after-action review next week.
Last point, I gave everybody we're gonna start working again on a new superintendent contract. And, we'll go through the same criticism we always do with respect to salary discussion, but we've never hidden this from view. We do this because we have to do it. And all I can tell you is I'm reviewing another contract right now in another field for an office manager whose salary is in really the same range, and the organization is it's just a fraction of this one. And we're doing it against the backdrop, of reduction or discussion of reducing the mayor's salary, and I don't know. I know there is a gap out there. It's an information gap, but the fact of the matter is, Dr. Robinson works in an industry that has a record around the state of what is paid to attract and maintain excellence at the administrative level. We didn't create that salary range, but if we try to ignore it, I don't understand how the district can expect to maintain its administrative staff. I don't frankly know how cities can expect to maintain their administrative staff going backwards either. But anyway, so I've given you a draft. Give me a call. Let's talk about it individually. I'd like to meet in executive session, which we're entitled to do. We can't make decisions in executive sessions, but we can discuss personnel matters, and I'd like to do that and kind of talk about what our schedule ought to be. Ultimately, we will meet in public. We will share the terms of the contract in public because we're required to do it, and it's the right thing to do. And I don't think it's necessary to apologize for this. We're not at the top of the range in the state of Indiana, but we better be careful so as to not discourage people from wanting to operate Fort Wayne Community Schools. It is the largest true public school district in the state. It has all of the challenges that you would expect in an urban setting, and when we do get around at some point when Dr. Robinson decides that her career has come to an end, we're going to be required to attract somebody new. And so I just say all that to kind of tee this subject up. We've never discussed it, that we haven't had some community criticism, but I don't know what the answer is. I mean, my dad always said you get what you pay for, and I'm afraid that's true in this industry like it is everywhere else. So, okay. Well, listen, I don't have anything else. We'll entertain a
Move for
motion
adjournment.
to adjourn. We got a motion?
One question.
Oh, sure.
Dr. Robinson, since Glenna brought up parent-teacher, communication, is our parent-teacher conferences coming up?
Yes, they are. We also have that same week fall break. So the parent-teacher conferences aren't they in a week? First week in November? Okay.
First week
Angie's
in
telling me.
November?
Do you know the dates, Angie? The 2nd and 3rd of November.
Okay.
And we have had phenomenal success with our parents coming. Thank you for making me say that out loud.
Great. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. We do have, again, microphone open, so if anyone's thought more about the budget or anything else.